today to do something I don't think we've ever done before on this show, which is reveal most of this set.
Basically, I mean, not the whole thing, but not the whole thing.
Not the whole thing. So you may have seen yesterday on Tolarian Community College a sneak peek of some of what's coming on Shuffle Up and Play. They showed off, I think it was like 36-ish cards, something.
I think it was maybe a little higher, maybe 40-ish or something. Yeah.
But we're going to triple that on this show. Because the gloves are off. The whole set's going to be revealed today. We're going to talk about the structure of the set. We're going to talk about all the cool treatments and tons of rares, uncommons, commons, whole thing. And I should introduce my guest, Carmen Klimperens, who is here.
Howdy.
She was the lead on the set, knows everything there is to know about Ravnica Remastered, and so much more about the past of Ravnica. We spent the last 10 minutes just talking about old draft formats set in the world of Ravnica. So if we go off the rails and start talking about back in the day, you'll have to excuse us. We're just very excited about this set and Ravnica Remastered and all we have to offer. So we're gonna dive into it. This is I will note before we get started, Throwback Tuesday. We're calling it.
Sure.
Also happening today on Magic Gathering Arena, Khans of Tarkir is being re-released as well, full of fetch lands and 3-color goodness. So if you're on Arena and want to get your taste of a little older Magic, Khans of Tarkir is there for you. And if you're looking for the tabletop side of things, we're here to talk about Ravnica Remastered and spill all of it. All of it. All right. So let's jump into it. We're gonna kick things off and kind of talk about the overall structure of the set and where you're pulling cards from, and also just show off some cool cards. The first card we have is an oldie but a goodie, Cloudstone Curio, and you'll see the 3 different versions here. So right off the bat, so these are the 3 treatments in the set. Carmen, tell us about the treatments.
Okay, so we have the retro frame treatment. This is something that you see in a lot of our remastered sets, and it's something that a lot of enfranchised players just love. Right?
Like, huge fan.
Who doesn't love the brown border on the artifacts? Yep. The text pops. It looks so good. And then we have this Japanese art style treatment that a lot of people are kind of saying, why this? What are we doing this on Ravnica for? Originally, this is from War of the Spark. That was the first time that we ever did this, so it felt fitting to bring it back for Ravnica Remastered, given that War of the Spark took place on Ravnica.
Yeah. Speaking of which, so this, we talk about Ravnica Remastered. This is pulling from all the sets that happen in Ravnica, including, as you said, War of the Spark, which our next preview card demonstrates. There it is. Oh, nope, that's not the card. We've got Nicol Bolas Dragon God. There it is. So talk a little bit about where you pulled cards for this set.
So it actually goes even a little bit further than just sets that took place on Ravnica. We cared that the cards took place on Ravnica. There are some things like Krenko Mob Boss. That was M14, I want to say. We know Krenko lives on Ravnica. And we know people love Krenko. And if we're going to give people the best of Ravnica, we're not going to leave those characters off just because they happen to originally be in a core set or Battle Bond or Jumpstart or something like that. We want to give people the best of the best.
All right, so if they're set on Ravnica and people enjoy them, probably in this set.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, now that's not to say that we don't. This set does have a pretty strong guild theme to it, though, obviously, right?
Right. Whenever designing, especially the gameplay of the set, the first thing that we cared about was guilds first. These are the things that you'll hear people say, I'm a Dimir mage, I'm a Gruul mage. You see people with the logos as tattoos. We knew that is what people love about Ravnica, and so first and foremost, we wanted the guilds to be the star.
Yep. And so the whole show is going to be structured around the guilds because Ravnica. But we do have a couple guild leaders at times to show you off. Ravnica's been through a lot, but here is Savra, Queen of the Golgari, an oldie but a goodie with some new art there. It's got the retro frame in the middle and the Japanese-inspired art on the right. I think this card still does quite a bit of work.
Yeah, it's so nice in Commander. And I think one of the luxuries of a remaster set like this is you get to revisit characters who are dead. I've been playing forever. The first draft format I ever was good at was OG Ravnica. Those are the first books I read where I believe Savra dies. So it's pretty hard for us to reprint
The Golgari
this
have had a few
character.
leaders over the years.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Whenever death is your guild's whole thing, well. So I think it's really cool that we get new art, we get new frames, and if you like this card, playing with it, this is how to get new versions of it. This is the way to upgrade them.
Yep, absolutely. Next up, we have Karlov of the Ghost Council. So this was one of those cards you were talking about, relatively new addition to the world of Ravnica.
Right, and this is one that is pulling from a commander deck, right, or a commander release, but everyone knows this is the Orzhov guild leader.
Yes.
Right, so making sure that this could be included, and players who think, what are the coolest cards from Ravnica, are going to see this and know that we did everything we could, right?
Yeah, yep, exactly. Yeah, this is a fan favorite, really cool card, and I've got a couple different versions of it. Okay, so let's, we've kind of talked about that overall structure, but this set is also meant to be drafted, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so talk about the makeup of the packs a little bit.
So in all of the packs, we actually have what is called a mana slot. A lot of the things are going to be your normal draft booster, what you would expect from that, but instead of a basic land, there's a mana slot, and that could contain a few different things. We're going to have, you could get a guild gate.
Which I think we have. There they are.
Right, perfect. You also could get a signet. And finally, you could even get a rare in this. You get an extra rare in your pack that's going to be either a shock land or the card Chromatic Lantern. But we know that shock lands are something that a lot of people are going to care about whenever they engage with this set. So giving people extra opportunities to open them was at the forefront of our mind, right? That's just the cool stuff. Everyone knows Steam Vents, Watery Grave, Stomping Ground, whatever it is.
Yep. And that was a gimmick in previous Ravnica sets as well. So like, I believe it was Dragon's Maze. You could get either a Guild Gate or a Shock Land. And this kind of takes that to the next level because you can also get a Chromatic Lantern in that slot, which is pretty cool.
Right. This just lets you live your 5-color dream if you open it in one of your draft packs.
Yep. And we didn't show them, but as note, the Guild Gates will have retro frame versions as well. You can see those in the card image gallery after the conclusion of the show. All right, so the way we're going to run this now is we're just going to go guild by guild. And we're going to show off cool stuff that each of the guilds have. We're going to go through mythic rares and rares, uncommons, commons, booster fun, and just talk about the archetypes. So let's kick it off with, alphabetically first, the Azorius. So some classic Azorius staples here. Carmen?
Yeah, and this one we really just wanted to make sure that we hit a lot of different eras and different parts of the set, right? So a lot of these are going to end up skewing a bit more recent. Some of these are just more powerful. They still see play today. Lavinia, huge in Commander.
Yep.
Right, turning off free reactive spells. We also ended up leaning into the split cards just because they're kind of hard to reprint outside of this context, and we've even seen them showing up in Pioneer as of late.
Yep. Yes, for various reasons. But yeah, we were just waxing poetic too about Sphinx's revelation. Its time has come and gone, but boy was that the card back.
I don't even know if it's gone. It feels so good to resolve.
It does. It feels really good.
You count the cards out at the top of your deck. You go, I will gain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 life.
I still have this in a few commander decks. It's still out there. All right, let's look at the uncommons, which forms some of the backbone of the drafting strategy. So we've got Azorius Guildmage, Sphinx of New Prov, Azorius Justiciar, Condemn, and Remand, 2 favorites of mine. And then Sky Hussar, which, as we were saying beforehand, the biggest mistake you can make with it is to actually cast it.
And I think this does a decent job of showcasing something that we were speaking to a moment ago, trying to make sure we represent each era of Ravnica, especially in the limited environment. We tried to skew a little bit older. We wanted to give people that sort of throwback draft feel.
That hit of nostalgia.
Exactly. You can see 4 of these are from the original Ravnica block, and we do actually have all 10 guild mages and all 10 of the new age, what we call CCDD uncommons.
Yeah.
So that is the Sphinx of New Prov, CCDD, referring to the colored pips in the top right corner.
Yep.
This was something that made sure that you still got to do the multicolor thing, but you weren't being 4 or 5 color kind of mishmash of removal and card draw the whole time. You actually got to be an Azorius mage.
Right. All right, and we also see on here forecast as well as why am I drawing-
Detain.
Detain. Thank you. Forecasting Detain. How did you work out the mechanics that were chosen for this set?
So we actually ended up trying out, I think, all of them. I think we literally tried all of them. We ended up with 26 of 29
Okay.
actually making into the set at the end. Unfortunately, some of them didn't quite hold up to modern heuristics, or the cards were too weak, or didn't play as well as we necessarily thought they would in the limited environment.
Okay.
But these mechanics are things that people associate with the guilds.
Yeah.
And so it was important to us to try and fit as much of that flavor, that feeling, evoke sort of you are whatever guild you want to be a part of during the actual gameplay.
So just tons of mechanics back. Which 3 didn't make the cut?
All right, so Cypher didn't end up making it. Most of the cards were just a little bit too weak for limited, and you know.
Cypher,
Undergrowth, I think, was the one we tested the most and had cards coming in and out of the file, and it ended up kind of falling right on the outside looking in.
Okay.
Just a little bit hard to make that one work as consistently as we wanted, since no other drafters really wanted it.
Yep.
And then finally, Radiance was one where the cards weren't too weak, but too frequently people were shocked that it was symmetrical.
In fact, if you've ever cast Bright Flame and wrapped your own side as well,
right,
you just kind of,
At one point, we even looked at Bright Flame as a possible downshift to uncommon, as a sort of CCDD card.
Sure.
And to go, oh, this will be fun. This is cool. This is a lot of master sets have this downshift, and then exactly like you said, someone wiped their own board and went, wait a second. And it was
the minute you do that, and then your opponent points it out to you, you're just like,
yep.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have done that.
Right, exactly. And we just, at this point that it's happened 2-3 drafts in a row in the building where people who would know this work, we kind of go, maybe this is actually taking away more fun than it's adding.
Yep, makes sense. I'm on board. As someone who bright flamed themselves accidentally a few times, that card looked so good. All right, now let's look at some of the commons from the Azorius Guild. Some fantastic ones here, and some ones that have even seen a little bit of constructed play. I remember Judge's Familiar, Repeal, and then a lot of these have some pretty good gameplay in Limited as well.
Yeah, and something that I think this slide does a good job illustrating is how proactive a lot of Azorius is.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a macro thing we had to do during game design a lot, was try and push things towards actually attacking people, dealing damage, because multicolor sets so frequently lend themselves to slow, grindy, attrition-y stuff that's naturally going to happen, which means we need to sort of pressure the other direction on purpose in order to make sure that games are taking 8-10 turns instead of 20.
Yep. Someone in chat noticed that Judge's Familiar got a downshift. How much in this set did you do downshifting or upshifting?
It varies a little bit, right? I want to make sure that we show some love to the Pauper community. We thought Judge's Familiar would be a really cool downshift. There are a couple others that we're going to get to show off here on the stream. I don't think it is quite as many as some past remastered sets, given that so much of Ravnica has sort of taken place in the modern era. It's closer to our current heuristics around rarity. But as evidenced by Judge's Familiar, it's not that it's a complete drought.
Yep, absolutely. All right, cool. We're going to keep going alphabetically, so we're going to move on to, oh wait, actually, no, we're going to see the Booster Fun, because we had some additional Booster Fun here. And this is where we can see some of those retro frames of some of the cards you called out as being cool.
I'm so excited for this Lavinia. I've always played it in all my Kethis decks. I like playing it in Commander, getting an old border. It just looks right. I can't. I don't know.
I have a Commander deck, a blue-white Commander deck, actually, that is entirely retro frames. Or older cards that had the frame originally, and some of these will be going in there. I think Sphinx's Revelation did already get it from Brothers War, but some of the others will be some great additions. All right, next up, let's see Boros. Let's meet some of the rares from that. We have a wide range of rares here. We've got Blazing Archon, an occasional reanimation target, Hellkite Tyrant, and then Response Resurgence. Tell us about these cards.
Honestly, a lot of these were kind of just making sure that we got the cool stuff from Ravnica, right? I think there's a lot of pressure to make sure that these are always tournament staples or something to that effect, but some of these are just fan favorites, right? People love playing with Hellkite Tyrant. It looks really cool. It's so powerful in Commander. It's the kind of thing where you look at it and you go, oh, 6 mana, 6 power dragon, I don't know about this, but then someone steals your Vedalken Orrery.
Yeah.
Or whatever with it, and you realize, oh, there's a lot going on here.
Yep. And it happens to say you win the game if you have 20 or more artifacts.
Not hard with tokens.
Not these days. It was a lot harder. Back in my day, it was a lot harder. All right, let's take a look at some of the Boros uncommons. We've, of course, got the Guild Mage and Truefire Captain leading us off, and there's that Lightning Helix that we just actually announced is going to be standard legal come Murders of Karlov Manor. So you can get this version, you can get that version. All the versions work. But tell us about this slate of uncommons.
And some of this wasn't an accident, right? There's some part where we knew that Lightning Helix was going to be standard legal.
Yep.
And we worked on this, and we wanted people to be able to get the original art. Some people really care about which versions of the cards that they have. They want to be able to express themselves in deck building when they're actually playing as well. And so making sure that this card actually made it into the set was a huge priority for us.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll show it in a moment, but it does get a retro. Which looks fantastic.
Do not get me started. I mean, you can get me started in a second.
We'll get you started in a second.
But not yet. But not yet.
All right, first let's get you started on the commons of Boros that we're showing off. We were talking about Sky Knight Legionnaire, which might be like the epitome of a perfectly designed Magic card. And then a slew of other things that reward attacking.
And Sky Knight Legionnaire was one of the ones we were talking about right before the show started. This is one of my favorite cards, maybe in all of Magic, where it's just so clean. You go, you know what? That is a red and a white card.
Yep.
I adore that. But this slide also shows off how some guilds, it was really easy to figure out what they were supposed to do in the limited format.
You're supposed to attack.
Right. Mixing and matching with Azorius. For example, was a little bit tough, where how do you make detain and forecast work? And we put work into that. Boros, on the other hand, Mentor, Battalion, faces the place, baby. We know what this deck is doing.
Yep. Now, you didn't go overboard because we were talking about this beforehand. You left out the Trumpeter, correct?
Yeah, no.
Bane of my existence.
There are so many cycles in Ravnica that we had to basically just pick one for each sort of thing. And I thought Sky Knight Legionnaire was a bit more fun than Thundersong Trumpeter, even if the Trumpeter will always have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, it'll have a special place somewhere in my memory, not in my heart. Far away from my heart. All right, let's take a look at some of the booster fun coming out of this. We've got Hellkite Tyrant, which gets both the retro and the Japanese inspired art. Blazing Archon gets that retro style art. That might be going in my blue-white deck. And then there's that retro Lightning Helix. Yes, you will be able to play that in standard come February.
Tell me it just doesn't look like a card from Apocalypse or something.
It does. It absolutely would have been in like Invasion.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It just I don't know. Some of these they're just right. I don't know. Maybe I'm old, need to go.
You know what? I'm right there with you. So, all right. Next, let's take a trip to Dimir and take a look at some of these rares. We've got Lazov, the Multifarious, Mind Leech Mass, and Connive Concoct, which has also seen some play recently.
So Lazov is one of these downshifts, but we did want to make sure that we actually had a cool legendary creature that played at least okay in limited for each of the color pairs. At one point we looked at Surku, which was the most popular card out of the original Ravnica.
Yep. God, Surku, I haven't thought about Surku in a long time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, it was awesome.
It was great,
that, Glimpse the Unthinkable, people were like, wow, what are they doing? It was so cool. Somehow that wasn't the strongest mill thing to come out of OG Ravnica. But those Mind Leech Mass, I know recently, well, I say recently, a year or so ago, this became more popular because of a horror commander precon that we ended up releasing. And I was really glad to be able to kind of squeak this one in at the last minute and go, wait, hold on. People want these for their decks. We need to get it in here.
Cool. All right, let's take a look at the uncommons. And of note, these are not encompassing all the uncommons. You know, some were shown off yesterday. The full card image gallery is going to be up at the end of the show, but this gave us a template of things to talk to. We see that Dimir Guild Mage, we see that CCDD Nightveil Predator, which is impossible to beat. Impossible. Maybe you change the draft format a little bit, but I could never beat that card ever. Nightveil Sprite, one of my favorite cards, and Moroi.
And Moroi is one of my favorite cards. This was just, I think this was the first Magic card when I was newer where I thought, you know what, I'll lose life and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I don't mind losing life if I get a powerful thing for it. Just being able to play with this again in Limited, it's just kind of tickled me.
So tell us a little bit about what Dimir is trying to do in Limited.
So Dimir is actually one of the most, I would say, generic sort of decks.
Okay.
Right? Most of the mechanics here don't really speak to one another, or even an archetype. We've kind of made Surveil evergreen at this point, so it feels a bit less Dimir than it did a couple of years ago. Transmute, not really going to build a whole deck around that. It's just going to come up and be cool when it happens. And finally, Cypher was too weak. So this is one that we ended up actually just leaning into what people expect from their blue-black deck, and that's to be a sort of slow, grindy, control, take over the game with card advantage and removal.
Which Dimir Guildmage does in spades. It's not, in my humble opinion, it's not the best long game Guildmage, but it's up there. It's probably top 3.
Oh, definitely. I mean, this slide encompasses a lot of it, right? You have your card advantage, you have your unkillable threat, and then you have your selection for the early game.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a look at the commons that we're going to show off. So we've got some of that Transmute with Drift of Phantasms. Those of you who played the Heartbeat of Spring deck back in the day, just palpitations right now.
Throwing it back.
Yep. Balustrade Spy, banned in some formats. Dimir Honor Guard, and we've got Last Gasp, one of the original premier 2-mana removal spells, and of course Persistent Petitioners.
Oh yeah, and believe it or not, that card has won games in playtesting before. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
I think it was Andrew Brown had ended up having 3 or 4 of them in a Dimir mill deck one time, and that was his kill condition. He just had Drift of Phantasms, Persistent Petitioners, and a Dream.
Yeah. It's a good dream. It's a good dream. The Dimir House Guard holds a special place in my heart because obviously it's in there to transmute. You transmute it. You go get your 4 mana whatever. It's kind of like a Diabolic Tutor sort of deal. But I have cast that card and sacrificed
most of the time.
In limited, absolutely. And it was also it wasn't impossible to beat, but it was real hard.
This is what I love about Dimir House Guard is, to me, as a designer who works on cards a lot, to me this is the oldest looking card in the whole set. Fear, don't do that anymore. Sacrifice, outlet for free, don't do that much. Regenerate, don't do that anymore.
No.
Top to bottom, I look at this and I just get nostalgic. It's so cool to actually get to sort of play with these sorts of things again.
100%. All right, let's look at some of the booster fun from Dimir and a lot of those cards that we just talked about, plus Muddle the Mixture, another Transmute card. Get a retro frame treatment. The retro frame for Transmute cards is pretty.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about these, and this is me just being an old fogey, but I love that you actually can get a not reminder text version of these cards in any way. Right, we tried that for, I think it was 10th edition, has the cool foil time stop that just has a 3-word text box.
End of the turn,
Right, but actually getting to do this, because we know who's buying these cards, right?
Yes.
The people who are going out and getting Ravnica Remastered are mostly enfranchised players. They know what the cards do, and you just have the ability to open really cool retro frame cards like Lazov, Mind Leech Mass, etc.
Again, for your horror deck, you've got the retro frame there for fans of that old frame. Yeah, the Mind Leech Mass, again, it looks like it should come out of Invasion Block.
Yeah, you just look at that and you go, oh, that came out of some pit on Wrath or whatever.
All right, next, let's move on to, continuing alphabetically, we're going to go to the Golgari. And we've got some all-timers here.
Top to bottom.
Yeah.
Come on.
Golgari Grave Troll, banned, unbanned, rebanned, Deathrite Shaman, banished, and then Find Finality, which was a fantastic card in its day in Standard, and gets a reprint here.
Yeah, it was huge in Standard, and honestly, it's no slouch today. Right, being able to get back two creatures from your graveyard for 2 mana ain't nothing. And a lot of times, this 6 mana sort of half Wrath at the right table in Commander is just going to be Plague Wind.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Also, stay tuned for retro frames. We're going to get to those in a moment. But first, uncommons. We got Golgari Guildmage again. I said this before. I think this might be the best long game Guildmage.
Oh yeah.
It's just real good. And then we got a healthy amount of Dredge, some Putrefy. What's going on here?
Yeah, all of this just really shows that we prioritize putting old cards in, getting the feelings of these decks, where even if you aren't necessarily always counting the cards in your graveyard for something like Delirium or Threshold or something, you're always watching your graveyard for Golgari Thug, for Moldavine Cloak, for the Guildmage. Even Fungal Rebirth here is one where it ends up mattering when cards go to your graveyard, what you're going to be getting back, and how that impacts the battlefield. And we found Golgari to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, let's look at some of the commons that help make it fun. We've got Disembowel, just the most fun. Dredge Beetle, Greater Moss Dog. You know, that card reads so plain, and yet it was one of my favorite cards. It was one of my favorite cards back in OG Ravnica.
Hill Giant was no joke.
Hill Giant with
every
Dredge.
turn?
Every turn.
Yeah.
It's when we should have known that Dredge was busted.
I love this new art for Disembowel as well. It almost just like, before, there's nothing wrong with the old art, but I kind of love the space of this art, sort of grim, but a little bit goofy.
Yep.
I don't know. It does a really good job of threading the needle and being fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now let's take a look at some of the booster fun. Yep, those are retro frame Golgari Grave Trolls and Deathrite Shamans. I love we got the little
the tombstone.
The tombstone in the upper left-hand corner for Golgari Grave Troll.
Got to be a little bit selfish on this one. I was a Dredge player on the outside. Even played it in Vintage back in like 2010. I was so glad to be able to get
you gotta do the tombstone.
Most of the Dredge cards in the old frame with the tombstone and everything. And I think this is the first time we've done hybrid as a retro on this Deathrite Shaman.
It might be.
So if this is something that you think is awesome, we'd love to hear about it.
It is awesome. Yeah.
Oh, I won't
it's already been determined. It's awesome.
I saw one in person. I've seen a foil one in person. It just my jaw dropped. It's stunning.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we are going to move on to the Gruul. And the Gruul do one thing. They smash. Again, we get to revisit characters who have died. Rest in peace, everyone. But we've also got Ilharg, the Raised Boar, one of the many Gruul gods, plus Thrash and Threat here.
Right, and this is one where, even if it wasn't necessarily as aggressive as Boros, right? Boros, all about attacking. Gruul, the creatures, are the star of the show, which is exactly where my happy place is, personally, to be, a little bit self-serving. So I really enjoyed working on the Gruul deck and making sure that if you just played creatures to the battlefield, you'd have an okay time.
Yeah, and if not Gruul, then die.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, next up, let's look at the uncommons. And Gruul Smash.
Yeah, and Wormweaver Coil is one of the downshifts that is actually showing up here. I think every color has one cool downshift from old Ravnica where we didn't really want it to be the rare that people open, but we did want these cards to show up because they're cool. I know I played a bunch of Wormweaver Coil with Solana Ledgewalker back in the day and thought that was a ton of fun.
For you?
What? Yeah, that.
Yeah. Yes. No, I get it. And then we got new art there on Rhythm of the Wild, which is a card that still sees. Oh yeah, hate that card, but still sees ton of play.
Oh, I mean, it's awesome, right? It's just the modern day fires of Yavimaya.
Yep. All right, and then let's take a look at the commons here. There's that Ledgewalker you were talking about. Rollbelt Maka brings back Blood Rush. Scab Clan Mauler. God, I died to that card so much.
That card's just so satisfying to play with.
Yeah.
Bloodthirst and Raid, probably two of my top 5 favorite mechanics.
Yeah. All right. Tell us a bit more about what Gruul is doing here. We're just going to keep going off into remember when?
Wow, that was so cool. Hell of a year, 2005.
God. Oh, man. Anyway, what's Gruul trying to do here?
All right. Play creatures to the battlefield. Everything here speaks to that and even lets you upgrade them a lot of the time, right? There's a bunch of versatility in the creatures themselves, so it wants to make sure that you can just have, of your 23 spells in a limited deck, 18 or 19 of them are going to be creatures, and you're going to have an okay time. Some of them double as pump spells like Rebel Belt Maka. Some of them are just going to play super differently on the play or the draw with anything with Riot, for example. And Bloodthirst as well is something that can be a little bit polar sometimes, but when it works, it's so nice.
Rebel Belt Maka. Ravnica's really good at making good hill giants in limited. That card's a beat.
Oh yeah. And I think this is new art for Wild Cantor, which I'm really excited about.
I think it is as well. Yeah. All right, and let's take a look at some of the booster fun for this set. Ilharg gets both treatments, and then a lot of people going to be excited about that Domri right there.
Oh yeah, I really love this one. I think getting more planeswalkers in this style of art is just great. I think it's so cool. You get to see so much expression from the planeswalker in a new sort of way, and I just love that.
Yep. And then Rhythm of the Wild and Solana Ledgewalker, 2 cards we called out earlier, and a lot of people are going to be excited about that Ledgewalker. It's frustrating to play with against, but with different story.
It's emblematic of us being a bit more tolerant of play patterns that we wouldn't be the happiest with today, right?
Yeah.
They're still fun in doses. We want hexproof players to have a good time. If you just want to put an equipment or Moldervine Cloak on Solana Ledgewalker, you can just do that.
Yeah. You can. You may not have friends anymore after that, but
what are you trying to say?
It's a thing you can do. Look, I have emotional scars from Solana Ledgewalker. I can't target it. I can't block it. I mean, that said, I cast a lot of Wrath of Gods back in the day. So, all right, moving on. Let's look at one of my favorite guilds, the Izzet. We've got some quasi-duplicate. We've got some Ral Zarek in the classic form, and then we've got Expansion, Explosion. Maybe my favorite split card, and maybe even the most powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. It's just so versatile, right? So I saw a ton of play during the Temur Reclamation era and Standard where it could sometimes kill your opponent. And sometimes it just worked as another negate in a counterspell fight. It just got to kind of do it all. Ral Zarek being a really cool planeswalker that sees a bunch of play in Commander and Cuba alike, where you never really expect it to be that good, but then your opponent plays wide and you're sweating bullets.
I mean, this is my one for maybe my one. It even sees playing Canadian Highlander because you know what it untaps? Time Vault.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's part of why it's so strong in Cube. It just does so much.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the uncommons of the Izzet Guild. Crackling Drake does still see a lot of play. And then we've got Izzet Charm, Terramander, just some real strong uncommons here.
Yeah, these are just kind of the cream of the crop in a lot of ways, where Terramander in a lot of ways probably looks more like a Simic card because it has Adapt, but in practice, really it's telling you to play a bunch of instants and sorceries, just like Crackling Drake, Murmuring Mystic, and so on. This deck was one of the harder ones to tune because a lot of the cards that ended up working well in an pile of instant and sorcery deck end up being those sort of grindy pile of removal decks that we didn't want everyone to be doing. So finding the cards that were strong enough to make this deck work, but not so strong that they made everybody do this sort of thing was really tricky.
Yep, makes sense. All right, let's take a look at the commons to underscore all of that. Of course, Goblin Electromancer. Of course, Compulsive Research. Tell us about these.
Well, I can tell you one thing about Compulsive Research I learned while working on this set is that it says target player.
Yeah, it does.
I had literally never had anyone, myself, my opponent, no one ever target their opponent ever. But that's allowed.
Yeah, it is allowed. I feel like that's come up, but
it's definitely had to have come up at some time.
It has to have. I don't know. You can misdirect it.
You have Underworld Dream. Like I don't know.
There are ways.
A few different things, I guess.
There are things. Someone in chat is very excited about Leapfrog. Leapfrog is back.
I love Leapfrog.
Leapfrog's great.
It's fun. It's like kind of punny. It just does a really good job of like. I think sometimes we can just take things really seriously because this matters and it's really cool. But it's fun to just be like, this is a game. We're having a good time. We're playing a game together. And Leapfrog, I think it's kind of punny, but it's strong.
It kills people.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Nothing. It's no Solana Ledgewalker, but,
I think Leapfrog and Burning Prophet are both really fun because they also just tell you to play your cards on your turn.
Yep.
Which a lot of times you play instant sorceries, you kind of sit on your hands, play draw, go, and that can be frustrating to some players. So having reasons that you would just cast Radical Idea on your main phase was huge.
Yep, makes sense. All right, and let's take a look at some of the sweet booster fun. Ral Zarek gets the Japanese treatment there. Terramander, Izzet Charm, that's pretty hot. Compulsive Research. Goblin Electromancer in the retro frame also.
Really excited about Goblin Electromancer. I've always been a big Giftstorm fan in Modern, and getting to just slowly upgrade that one to being the coolest thing ever. I think Baral already exists in retro frame, so now this can just round out the creatures.
Yeah, this is I'm just going to stare at this for a moment and just appreciate it.
We're just basking.
Aesthetically. This show's for me. Sorry, everyone. You get to watch, but this is all for me. All right. Next up, we are going to move on to the Orzhov Guild. And we're going to see Kaya, Orzhov Usurper. That's a pretty fantastic reprint there. Teysa, of course, Orzhov Scion. And then Revival Revenge here.
And Kaya's another one of these downshifts that
Yeah.
isn't exactly a legendary creature, but she was a guild usurper, leader.
She's in charge for a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and this card showed up and constructed a decent amount and does a surprising amount of work, even in Commander, just being able to hit Soul Ring.
Yeah.
Right?
No, this card's really good. I've played with it and constructed a number of places, and being a 3-mana Planeswalker that affects the board and has a pretty strong ultimate is don't sleep on this card.
It also is just a huge burn spell.
Yeah.
Right? It's the kind of thing, it just exiles a couple cards, this will be fine. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh god, is that going to do 15?
Yeah. You're like counting graveyards, like, or exile piles. Yeah, you're just like, yeah, okay, I'm going to be dead. I'm going to do something about this. Yeah, downshifted to rare. Really cool. All right, let's take a look at the uncommons here. So one thing I want to point out here before we talk about the kind of mechanics of Orzhov is the CCDD card there. That's not one of the creatures.
No, this is one where we kind of alluded to this earlier when talking about Bright Flame. We explored other options for these slots, right? We didn't want to just have the 10 cards straight pulled in from Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance. We wanted to say, hey, is there anything else cool that we can put in here?
Yep.
And Death of the Deathless is one that we know shows up a good bit in Commander. And I don't think, is it Haunt of Hightower? Is that the name
Haunt
of
of Hightower, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that one's necessarily aged quite as well. And we just want people to feel good about the cards they're getting out of their packs, right?
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing where we know what player wants to own this card. We know who's going to be happy to play with this, and that's enough to send it in.
Yeah. All right, so tell me a little bit about the mechanics that are going on with the Orzhov Guild here.
So this was one of the harder ones to nail down a strict identity for. You kind of have an idea of, okay, well, I know there's a lot of draining, there's nickeling and diming my opponent out, but that's not a whole archetype, really. So there's a sort of minor sacrifice theme with Afterlife that ends up playing well with some pseudo Blood Artist when a creature dies, ping them effects, and we tried to be able to pull that together into some life gain, some pinging. It isn't quite as streamlined as something like Boros, but the cards do end up playing well together.
Yep. And someone's asking about Extort, so let's look at the commons. Because there's some Extort right there. And Blind Hunter, which I was raving about beforehand. And Ill-Gotten Inheritance was shockingly... Wait, that was an uncommon before, wasn't it? No? It was a common?
It was a common.
Okay.
This one still does work today.
It's still... yeah, that card's actually pretty strong.
It's on the backside of one of the crafting cards in LCI, basically. The Dagger, I believe. But yeah, host of great cards here that are very good at just inevitability. I would call it in a way that is not actually card advantage, which is normally what we think about when we hear about inevitability, is just Extort is going to deal you damage. These flying creatures, be it the Messenger, the Blind Hunter, what have you, even if you use a kill spell on them, it's either going to deal some damage in Blind Hunter or leave behind another flyer with the Messenger. And it's going to be able to sort of 1U, 2U, 3U every single turn. So you need to have a plan to end the game if you're playing against an Orzhov deck. Yeah,
a lot of sneaky card advantage, a lot of ways. Again, we were talking about this beforehand, where you get in where the Orzhov deck will get in a position where you're not dead for 5 turns.
But you are dead in 5 turns.
You are dead in 5 turns, and there's nothing you can do about it. A lot of sneaky ways to deal damage here. Orzhov is a really fun guild to put on. All right, let's take a look at some of the booster fun. Those asking for different art for Teysa, Orzhov Scion, here you go. Cartel Aristocrats gets the treatment, as well as Debt to the Deathless.
I love the Japanese art on this Teysa so much. It reminds me of the second Godless Shrine that just had the giant stained glass behind it. It just does a really good job of being art that pops, but also kind of has a callback to something in old Ravnica, and I adore it for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do see some people asking about some specific commons here and there, which I love. We have some diehards in chat.
Commons rule.
Commons rule. So we aren't showing off all the commons here. We just didn't have enough room on the screen. There's a lot of commons. When the card image gallery goes up at the end of the show, definitely go through it for those commons. There's going to be some more commons, and everybody has their favorites. So just because we haven't mentioned it doesn't mean it's not in the set. You'll need to check out the card image gallery to check on those niche commons that people. We all have, like, that's the thing I love about this set is we all have fond memories of a lot of this stuff.
Right, we spent how many times have I said Thundersong Trumpeter today?
More times than I've heard Thundersong Trumpeter in probably the last decade.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think anyone has thought about that card this much. Well, I have, but
you have,
you
yes.
know.
All right, let's move on to Rakdos for the Rakdos fans out there. We've got some pretty strong cards here as well. We've got Infernal Tutor, which is coming back, Priest of the Forgotten Gods, and Bedazzle, which has also seen a resurgence in play due to Discovery lately.
Yeah, that one's been nice. Priest of Forgotten Gods also just showing up a lot in any of the Mayhem Devil, Cat Oven Pioneer decks. I know some people played it with Tyvar out of All Will Be One. So this is one that honestly is just aged remarkably. And Infernal Tutor, we'll get more to it later. But this is one of the cards I'm the most excited about being in the set for reasons.
For reasons. Yeah, and for those asking to clarify the comment, I said the full card image gallery, the entire set is going to be out at the end of this show on dailymtg.com. After the show is over, around 11. Wow, we still have a lot to get to. We may run over 11 o'clock. There's going to be some the whole set. All right, let's keep going because I just realized what time it is and we need to get through a bunch more. Let's look at the uncommons of Rakdos. We're bathing in this nostalgia. All right, tell us what's going on with the Rakdos uncommons here.
Downshifts, top to bottom. We've got Demon Fire. We've got Rakdos Pit Dragon. This is the Sly deck. For anyone who hasn't spent a depressing amount of time playing, 20 years, something like that. Sly is basically play all your cards out, see who's dead. You're just attacking as fast as you can. Everything involves damage. You're playing a bunch of 1-drops. You're playing a bunch of 2-drops. And you're even getting paid for emptying your hand. Demon Fire becomes uncounterable when you're empty-handed. Rakdos Pit Dragon is at double strike when you're empty-handed. These are cards that tell you put your cards on the table and kill them. Just set the terms of the entire game on the first turn.
I have died of Demon Fire so many times. And I'm going to die to it more because it's an uncommon. Let's take a look at the commons. I'll try to wax nostalgic a little bit less. Gobhobbler Rats. Love that you're back. Skewer the Critics. Tell us about these.
Oh, okay. So Blade Juggler is maybe my favorite limited common
Blade
of
Juggler
all
is
time.
Really good. Yeah.
I loved Ravnica Legion's Draft. It's what got me qualified for my first tabletop pro tour. That card is so much fun to play with. And Skewer the Critics, if you're a Lava Spike enjoyer,
here's a Lava Spike.
Come on, this card's awesome.
Yeah.
This is it's pretty rare that we actually get to put anything close to Chain Lightning into Standard or anything like that. And this is a card that we took a risk on, and it worked out.
As the person being skewered may disagree. All right, let's take a look at the booster fun. We've got the Infernal Tutor.
Oh yeah, and this is one that this has felt like such a long time coming.
Yeah.
It's seen play for decades.
And I looked at Infernal Tutor. I'm like, this wasn't already printed. And it wasn't.
It's just the kind of one of my favorite things to do while working here is to do something that everyone just assumes we already did because it's that obvious that we need to.
Yeah, I mean the retro frames for the rest of these is my personal feelings on Light Up the Stage and Skewer the Critics aside. They're gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
And those are going to see a lot of play.
Oh yeah, I play Modern Burn, have it foiled out. I'm so excited to get more copies of Skewer the Critics like this.
All right, let's move on to Selesnya. Selesnya, we've got. I heard some people talking about Court of Calling in chat earlier. It's here.
Pretty nice in Pioneer, I hear.
Yeah, I hear. I'm playing it myself. All right, we got Tolsimir. We've got Assure Assemble. Tell us about these.
Yeah, I mean, Court of Calling is just maybe one of the most, how do I put this, sort of intuitive Magic cards ever, right? Convoke has got to be top 10 mechanics all time.
Great mechanic.
Pretty easily. And being able to convert small creatures into one big creature, that's just so satisfying to be able to do. This is just, it's got to be one of the most fun cards ever made. So
it's super fun. It's super strong. I kid you not, played with this card this morning in Explorer.
I mean, it's just great, right? Like, as soon as we were doing this, I think Court of Calling was one of the first cards in the file.
Yeah.
We knew it was going to be here.
As it should be. All right, uncommons. Here we go. We got some more of these. We've got Selesnya Guildmage, another, like, all-timer in terms of limited.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Devouring Light, underrated, in my view.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like people don't value it. It's just they don't realize it is busted.
Real good. You ever cast that with no mana untapped? Because it feels pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Selesnya Evangel. Sneakily
very strong.
One of the more powerful cards in the Selesnya.
It might be my pick for the strongest non-rare pack one.
Yeah.
It's just so nice. If you ever get to untap with it, you're like, oh, my opponent never gets to attack again.
Yeah. Pretty good. All right, let's take a look at the commons, which some more, like, Fists of Ironwood into Siege Worm is just one of those classic, like, yeah.
And it's so frequent that if you're on the draw, you can even Fists of Ironwood your opponent's creature.
Yes.
To just get the 2/2s. You're like, what are you gonna do? Trample over with your 2/1?
Yep.
Okay, great, you did it, but I get my Raise the Alarm.
Yep. Okay, so we've talked about Convoke a bit here. Populates in this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is one where there were only 29 guild mechanics because Convoke was used twice.
Yeah.
But we did want to make sure we did hit those token notes. So having cards like Call of the Conclave, a downshift here on screen.
Yep.
We wanted to make sure there were cool things to populate. So we really dug deep to find the things that we could that are more than just making a 1/1.
Mm-hmm. All right, and let's take a look at the booster fun. There it is. It's that Court of Calling people were asking for in the retro frame. It's here. Tolsimir gets that vision. Devouring Light, again, you're underrating this card. I think there's some strategies in Commander that should be playing it. And then Call of the Conclave to get one of the most efficient mana-wise cards to populate.
Yeah, and we really wanted to fit Watchwolf into the set because it's a classic.
Yep.
But because of Populate, it was really hard to not just go with Call of the Conclave because it did play so much better.
Yep, makes sense. All right. Last guild, we've still got a bit to talk about, though. Simic, blue-green. We've got Prime Speaker, Zagana, Void Slime with that new art, and then Repudiate, Replicate. It's a bit of a tongue twister there.
Another one that even showed up in Pioneer kind of recently.
Yep, absolutely.
I think this Prime Speaker Zagana has a downshift, if memory serves. I know it originally was a mythic.
It was originally a mythic. It might have been printed as a rare somewhere else.
Sure. Either way,
Chat
this
probably
is
knows.
part of the legend
Yeah.
cycle, right? This is one that we just know plays really well. You make a big creature, and then you draw a bunch of cards.
Yep, absolutely. All right, and then uncommons here. Maybe. I heard a noise that sounded like a computer, and then there we go. Okay, uncommons. All right, we're all good. Producer Sean says we're all good. Frilled Mystic, Experiment 1, Sharkdo Crab. These are some fantastic.
Oh yeah, they're so much fun, and one of the things I'll use as a framing tool when talking with people is player hat versus game designer hat.
Mm-hmm.
Game designer hat had to have Frilled Mystic in the set.
Got it.
Player hat, I hate this card. I hate it so much. This is my Skewer the Critics.
Yeah.
Or my Silana Ledgewalker. This is one where even before I worked here and was a streamer, my emote for Salt was Frilled Mystic.
I have mixed feelings on this card because on one hand, blue, counterspell. That's totally my jam. On the other hand, it attacks me after it does that, and that's just not cool.
Not fair. That's not fair. 3 powers is too many powers for that.
It's too many powers. But really, really strong card. Okay, moving on. We've got the commons, and one of my favorite. First of all, Coiling Article, just right away, one of my favorite cards of all time.
So many of the all-timer classics are from the original Ravnica series. It's just like,
more.
Wow, what? The designs are just inspired.
Yeah. Cloudfin Raptor, really sneaky strong card with new art.
Oh yeah, I absolutely love this facelift so much. This is one where it was the first time I actually got to work with Ovidio, who was the, I believe, was one of the leads for LCI.
Yes.
And just watching him work and on these concepts was just jaw dropping.
Yep.
Wonderful, wonderful person to work with.
Yep. Helium Squirter, very powerful and limited. But I want to stay on Cloudfin Raptor because of the retro frames. Look, I'm not a huge Cloudfin Raptor fan, but
you gotta hand it to it.
Like the centered flying evoke, the little baby Cloudfin Raptor looking. Oh my gosh, and the Coiling Oracle obviously just gives me feelings.
It just feels so good.
It does.
Like
it feels right. Again, it feels like Coiling Oracle has been around for so long that it should be in that frame.
It's just great seeing like that is the first time that text came up, and we still use that sort of thing so much. It's
all the time.
So cool. It just plays so well.
Yep. We have another slide of these. There we go. We weren't done with the Simic. We've got Experiment 1, Farseek, and Frilled Mystic.
And Farseek's just one of those nice ones to have, right? It isn't necessarily as Simic or Ravnica themed, but it did take place on Ravnica, and it is awesome to play within Commander, being able to grab even tri-lands with it.
Yep. And then finally, Prime Speaker Zagana gets all of the treatments.
Oh, that looks so good.
Yeah. All right. There is one more sort of, won't call it secret archetype, but another archetype, because we talked about the mana fixing slot. There are going to be a lot of gates in this. So there's a tiny little gate sub-theme. Let's show off those cards.
And these were for the players. We kind of alluded to it when talking about Chromatic Lantern earlier. There are some people who are going to sit down and they're going to say, I want to do as many colors as possible.
Yep.
I'm going to take a bunch of lands and I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure that if that player does come and sit down, they're being led down a dead end.
Yep.
Right, and we didn't have to commit that many slots to that archetype because it plays so many colors, it just gets to play what it wants.
Yeah.
And having something like Gate Colossus, it's just kind of a freebie, right? It takes one slot.
Yep.
And open the gates. It's just good fixing. You're going to play that even if you're not in the gates deck. And a Boreal Grazer in retro frame? Come on.
Yep.
Come on.
He's a lot of play. Gate Colossus is sneakily, because it's an 8/8, one of my son's favorite cards. He happens to. Okay.
It's so cool.
All right. Next, we are going to talk about some collector booster exclusives, because there is a set of cards in this set that are not in the main draftable set, but are collector booster exclusives in retro frame specifically. Can you talk a little bit about first why those aren't in the main set, why they're shifted over here?
Yeah, so in a lot of ways, this set was kind of meant to be a love letter to people who have been playing for a long time, love Ravnica, and we wanted to make sure that we actually were able to retro frame all of the cards that people think of whenever they think of Ravnica, right? And a lot of those cards don't play well in draft.
Yeah.
And not just in that they are too strong direction.
Yep.
Some of them were, I think we're going to show this on screen later.
Yeah, we're going to show them all.
Shattering Spree is an example of one that doesn't really play in limited. Maybe you blow up a
Signet. Like, you want the card, but you really don't want to have to draft it.
Right, but there is a way we need to make that card exist.
Yeah.
Right, and the solution that I believe it was the game design co-lead Mark Globus came up with was having some of the retro frame cards only show up in the collector booster.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take a look at some of those. We'll just run through that list. We've got Shambling Shell, Sphere of Safety, Aetherize, Narco Amoeba, another draft or Dredge All-Star. It doesn't say Dredge, but that's a Dredge card. Turnabout with that the IDW comic book art. Creeping Chill, Dark Blast, two more Dredge cards that don't say, well, Dark Blast says Dredge. There's that Shattering Spree that you mentioned. And then we've got Perilous Forays, Wilderness Reclamation, which you mentioned earlier, and Magerite Stone. Now, there is another, it's not exactly a collector booster exclusive. It's not in the main set for very good reasons. For anyone who lived through this time, you'll understand. But it also has an anime treatment, and anime treatments can be found in the draft boosters.
Correct. This is one that I'll say it's infamous. It's Pack Rat. We've got it up on the screen for you, and this is one where we knew this kind of had a tendency to blow up some draft games.
Yeah, a few.
Right, but it is iconic. It is cool. People love playing with rats. This is a card everyone is going to think about whenever they think about RTR era.
Yep.
Right. And as a result, we want it to be somewhere in the set, but we do want it to show up a lot less than normal. So this is a card that doesn't have a regular treatment in the set. And I don't believe you can open the retro ones in draft boosters, but you can open the Japanese style art.
Yes.
It's going to be pretty infrequent, and ideally it happening less frequently creates more pop-off moments than upset moments. But that is something that we did want to make sure was in the set because it is cool, it is iconic, and we want people to be able to have this card.
Yes, but it will. If you see this card in your draft booster, draft it.
Take it and put 39 swamps in your deck with it,
and you're done.
Mulligan.
Yes. People did that in one game. Like, actually,
this card's so strong. I mean, I think it is less strong than it was in Return to Ravnica, just because we balanced so much around the original hybrid guild mages.
Yeah.
So a lot more shocks in the environment than Ravnica or Return to Ravnica had, but still very strong.
All right. We had a request to do retro thespian stage, so let's do that. Let's get to that.
Okay.
We don't need to go. There it is. We did it. Pithing Needle, Karn's Bastion, which is really cool. Proliferate, and thespian stage.
Yeah, we technically have Proliferate in the set. I think we have Kiora's Dambreaker at common. I don't think
we didn't show it, but
slide,
it's there. Yep.
Those are the only two Proliferate cards. We tried to stick to guild mechanics.
Yep.
Enter the Infinite with the Magic Online artwork.
Yep.
As well as Niv Mizzet Reborn and Maze's End. These are all cards that we think are fun, but we want to make sure that these can exist without necessarily making the draft environment worse.
Yep. And if you show up to a release event at your local game store, there is a release promo. It's this Niv Mizzet the Firemind, just a classic. This was when the original Ravnica block came out. This was the card I was most excited about. Day one, I got 4 Steam Vents. I got my Niv Mizzets. I built that deck. I had it going by the end of the pre-release, like ready to go. Love this card, and this is the release promo. So check with your local game store to get one of these on release weekend. And then I believe the final thing we have. Oh, we're gonna actually come in on time. Good job, us. we could have spent so much more time.
Oh, I could be here all day.
Oh my God, we can't do that. So there are, as we announced on social the other week, there are serialized cards in this set, and I think we have some of them on the screen in a moment. Maybe. I think so. Nope. Okay, never mind. I'm wrong. Looking at something old, but if you check out the Wizards of Magic X Twitter account, we showed off serialized. I think it was Shocklands. And then there's a couple other that get the serialized treatment as well. Again, if you head to the card image gallery after the show, you can sort by what has what sort of treatment, and you'll be able to pull all of that together as well. We were going to do Q&A, but we talked a lot about Ravnica Remastered. So Ravnica Remastered comes out when?
Why would you do this to me? I believe it's January 12th.
It is, correct. Oh, good job. Good work. Did your homework.
All
right, so check with your local game store about release events. It's coming in 2024, very early on. A lot of cool stuff in here. If you head to dailymtg.com, the full card image gallery, as well as the collecting, if you want to know like what treatments are found, where Ravnica Remastered is pretty simple. There's only draft boosters and collector boosters. Those are the two types of boosters for this set. So it's pretty clean, but if you want to get the details, collecting Ravnica Remastered will be available, as well as the card image gallery, which is sortable by both product type and treatment type, so you can get all of that there. Thank you for tuning in. Please enjoy Throwback Tuesday. Revel in your remembrance of Ravnica Remastered, and if you have some time, go check out Khans of Tarkir, not Remastered, just straight up Khans of Tarkir on Magic Gathering Arena, releasing today. This is our last show of 2023. We will be back in January. So thank you for tuning in this year. We'll see you next year.